Hello, I'm Stephanie Thomas
And I'm Mary Thomas.
of Thomas and Thomas PC. Welcome to our channel, The Sales Tax Sisters. We are sales and use tax consultants here in Texas, and we wanted to give you some audit hot topics about documentation.
And this applies for jurisdictions everywhere. So if you're not in Texas, sit back and relax. You got your cover.
That's right. So the first thing we're going to talk about is work papers. When you file your sales and use tax return, whether or not you're a yearly filer, quarterly filer, or a monthly filer, it's always important to retain the work papers that you use to come up with the numbers that you filed.
Print it out in real time. A lot of people will, when we go in and people hire us to be their liaison with the controller, one of the first things we ask for is we want to see the sales tax returns and the work papers. And the truth of the matter is the sales tax returns, yeah, we like to see them, but we get that information from the controller. They have a system. They know what your total sales are, your taxable sales, your taxable purchases. They know what you reported. So we can get that. The thing that we need, tongue-tied, is how did you get the numbers? And that's what the auditor wants to know. They want to know how you got the numbers. There's a 4-year look back in the state of Texas. It's 3 years in other places. The thing about it is that things happen at the end of the year, and everybody knows this. Every month you close, you're going to have adjusting journal entries. You're going to have closing year in journal entries that can go in and change what those numbers were in your system, and your audit trail is obliterated. And we've seen it happen time and time again. You'll talk to people and you'll say, okay, how did you get this number?
And they say, I don't know.
Yeah, they're like, we printed out the report, and the report that we printed out now, 3 years later, is not showing the same information that was on this return.
Or they say we printed out the report, and the only thing they printed out was the confirmation that the money went to the controller's office. They don't have anything about how they came up with the numbers that they reported.
Exactly.
And as we said in our other videos, you need to report your total sales, your taxable sales, and your taxable purchases. There needs to be a trail of how you came up with those numbers. And that trail is the work paper in real time when you filed the return. Trying to reconstruct it 4 years, 3 years down the line is a nightmare. And sometimes people change jobs. The person who did the return isn't there anymore. You need your records to speak for you in case someone who was there before isn't there right now. So make sure when you're filing your return that you have the appropriate work papers and not just the confirmation of the money you sent into the controller's office. That's useless. Nobody wants that.
And then that rolls into the second point. And the second point is, my God, make it simple.
Yes.
I can't tell you how many times we'll get something and we're looking at it, and when people hire us, and a lot of people hire us, and I do not blame you, because you want to run your business as this audit goes on, and especially because a lot of our clients, we have a lot of like data processing, construction. They're high pressure businesses where these people are running all the time. And the thing about it is that you want to run your business, but you want to take care of this audit too, because it's very important. You have to have your finger on the pulse of that. If your documentation is complicated, then you're going to get more questions than you really want to deal with. You want to make it simple. There are some times that we get things from clients, and they've got an Excel workbook that is 20 or 30 tabs long. And I'm sitting there, I'm looking at it, and we have to come up with how are we going to simplify this?
Yeah.
To make this go faster for this auditor who they're not interested in all this. They don't need to see all of this.
Yeah, and sometimes if it's too complicated, they will estimate.
Yeah.
And estimates are never, ever your friend. So the big thing is to make things as simple as possible, as concise as possible. And that relates to your work papers, your documentation,
your invoices.
Your invoicing.
We talked about that in another hot topic video. That if you haven't seen, go back and see it. All of your documentation should be saying the same things. If you want the auditors to go right, point them right throughout the entire process. Don't let anything point them left, because if one thing is pointing them left, it's their job to go and investigate it. And you may not like what they find when they do that investigation, because they may reach a different conclusion than you did.
Yes, you don't want ambiguity, and you don't want, flashing neon signs for them to jump down a rabbit hole and just go completely left, like you said. The other thing is, make sure you have your certificates on file.
And we just talked about that.
And we talked about that in another Audit Hot Topics video about certificates. The big thing is you need to be able to substantiate your tax-free sales. And, regardless of jurisdiction, that means either getting some type of certificate or purchase order or something like that. It depends on the jurisdiction that you're in. In Texas, to substantiate your tax-free sales, you need certificates, a resale certificate or exempt certificate. We have a lot of certificates
That's
down
universal.
here.
That's universal. You need your certificates. One that we have not mentioned thus far, and we'll mention it in another video, is the direct pay permit holder exemption certificates, where you're dealing with really big companies that they have their direct pay permit holder in that state.
Yes.
And they'll make an agreement with the state that, hey, we will remit the tax directly to you, the taxing authority. They have the option as to whether or not they want to issue you a certificate whereby they agree to do that on invoices that you issue them. Every direct pay permit holder doesn't have to they don't have to issue their certificate.
It's at their discretion.
It's at their discretion. If they don't issue it and what they're doing is subject to tax, you charge the tax. So and if you get the certificate, you have to make sure it's properly completed. So that's another hot spot for the video on exemption certificates. We didn't talk about this one with specificity. We didn't talk about it at all. But the rule as it relates to what we talked about in the video applies to this. If you're going to get it, it's got to be complete. They've got to be a direct pay permit holder, and read the instruction on the certificate to know whether you can accept it from someone who's trying to issue it.
Exactly.
So with this one, this was another top 5. We have covered 3 of the 5.
I think we covered 4 of the 5. We did. We covered 4 of the 5. I think the last one.
Name them.
Certificates not being on file, your documentation being complex, your invoices not saying enough.
Okay.
As well as your work papers.
You got me.
That's
okay.
4. That's 4. So the 5th one is when you get a notification that you're being audited, the state controller's office down here always gives you a laundry list. Well, eventually they'll issue you a letter with a laundry list of documents that they want to see. On that list is your federal income tax returns. And what they're doing is they are comparing what you have filed with the feds to what you filed on your sales and use tax returns for total sales. And if those numbers don't match, which they may not match because you're reporting on a different basis, cash versus accrual or something else, or you have out-of-state sales, sometimes that happens too. But for whatever reason, if those numbers do not match, you need to be able to explain why they do not match.
Yeah. I mean, there are, a couple weeks ago, I went in and I was looking at the instructions for filling out the sales and use tax returns. And actually, Stephanie's dealing with an auditor right now who is looking at a client's total sales. And she wanted the federal income tax returns. And what she did was, she did what we talked about in another video, a high-level reconciliation of, this is what this company reported as their total sales to the federal taxing authorities, to the IRS, for all these years. This is what they told Texas. They told us less than what they told.
So let's see what the difference is.
Yeah, so let's see what the difference is. And when they do that, because that's a normal high-level reconciliation, you have to then be able to pull out your paperwork and say, yeah, we reported $20 million to the IRS, and we reported $15 million to Texas because $5 million went to Maryland.
Exactly. So if there are differences there, you have to be able to explain what the differences are. That's simple enough. So just note that if you are reporting on a different basis, if you do have out-of-state sales going to different jurisdictions or out of the country, you need to be able to explain to an auditor what those differences are. Because if there are discrepancies, you may have an issue, especially if you cannot explain why you have discrepancies there.
Oh, you will have an issue because the auditors that we've been working with lately, if there is a discrepancy there, they're going to schedule it. And then it's up to us to prove that, hey, this is what happened here. It kind of goes back into what we talked about in the previous video of if you have things in your bank account that are hitting your bank account that are not business related, that comes in for scrutiny. I know that Stephanie's dealing with the situation now where a client had insurance proceeds hitting a bank account, and the auditor's sitting there. She wants to tax it because she wants proof that they were actually insurance proceeds. That's easy. That's an easy thing to do. But other things are not so easy. So just be careful. We all know going to the bank and getting different bank accounts is a pain in the butt, but it can be worth it if you're talking about keeping things simple when you are being audited.
Yeah. So I think that's our 5.
That's our top
5 documentation mistakes for the audit hot topics video. So we hope that you've learned something. You know, we do these so you can learn something. So we hope that you've learned something. If you have any questions, please reach out to us. And I think that's it. Oh, yeah. And if you haven't subscribed, if you looked at the video, subscribe. Just
and
go
thumb
ahead.
us up if you liked it.
Yeah, go ahead. Press the button. We would appreciate it. So I think that's it. Anything else you want to add?
No. If you have any comments, let us know. If there are any little topics that you want to hear about, let us know.
Yeah, we'd be more than happy to tackle it for you. So I think that's it. So thanks everybody for watching.
Bye.